Ah, this again. Well, looks like it's time to get an overflow of comments about my hobo takes. Okay, so there's 8 weapons in Wild Hearts, each with their own mechanics. But how hard are these weapons? Or are they all so easy that there's no point to this video? Well, I wouldn't really be making this video in the first place. Let's just get to it. And once again, to remind people that this is my own opinion about whether these weapons are hard or easy to use. I will be doing my best to try and consider the difficulty of these weapons for a complete beginner starting Wild Hearts with minimal gaming experience, meaning that it's for a person that has not played a monster hunting game, but they have dabbled in other hack and slash games. Starting up with the first weapon you hold, the Karakuri katana. This weapon is extremely easy to use, and it's pretty obvious. For a feudal Japan-inspired game like this, the katana is an iconic weapon whenever you think about the land of anime. The reason why I would say it's easy is because there's barely anything in here that makes this weapon difficult to use. The attack strings on this weapon are simple. You either spam X, Y, or RT on the Xbox controller. You can add an additional input by pressing RT to the X or Y attacks, but all it really does is enhance those attacks. I would say that the hardest bit is to make use of its enhanced state. Once that meter is filled up, you can activate the weapon's enhanced state, which will basically make your weapon hit harder. The downside to this enhanced state is that the enhanced meter drains quite quickly, so you better start attacking the kimono as soon as you can, before you have to build up that meter again. Also, you can't activate the enhanced mode when your meter isn't filled. It must be filled before you can go back into the enhanced state, which I kind of find a bit stupid, but that's just how they weirdly designed it. Even though this weapon is easy to use, it doesn't mean that it's a bad weapon. You know, sometimes simple is best, and this weapon offers that service. Next is the hunk of metal, or Guts' sword, the Nodachi. This is one slow weapon, and it's quite a simple weapon to use. The mechanic of the Nodachi mostly relies on charging up the EI meter to do massive damage. However, while you're charging up the meter, you can either stay still so that the meter charges up faster, which is an obvious invite for the kimono to F you up, or you can move, but the meter charges up extremely slowly. Plus, you're gonna manage your stamina, because charging the meter drains your stamina, on top of dealing with the kimono, which obviously is gonna attack you. Not only do you have that, but doing attacks while charging helps with charging the meter. There's quite a lot of stuff at play, even though the mechanic of the weapon is simple. So that is why I will put this weapon under medium. The combos are not hard at all. It's pretty much mash the attack button 3 times, but getting max charge can be quite a chore, especially when you have the kimono on your case. In the end though, it's another simple weapon, but managing the EI meter can be painful. The hammer, or specifically the maul, another slow weapon. If you are not used to using slow weapons, then this can be quite a problem. The mechanic of this weapon can be hard to get used to. I still mess up the timing of this weapon, and I've used this weapon quite a bit. So basically, whenever this weapon glows up when you do an attack, you're meant to press the special attack button to extend the handle, allowing you to follow up with stronger attacks. The problem about this is that the timing to extend the handle is quite odd. You can slightly miss the time needed to extend the handle with some attacks, but others can be quite instant. Like, you literally have to press the next attack button as soon as you extend the handle, whereas other attacks can have a second or 2 delay, and that can mess you up when you want to do a specific attack. I would put the difficulty of this weapon under hard. Compared to other weapons, this one relies on timing your slow and sometimes quick attacks. It's a weird rhythm game with the maul, and the indication of extending the handle can be hard to see when the kimono is in your face. If I could, I would lower the difficulty somewhere in between medium and hard, because this weapon doesn't have any meter to manage. The only thing you do have to slightly manage is the stamina bar, because every time you extend the handle, stamina is used. If you're not keeping an eye out on your stamina, you will be left in a position where the Kemono will whoop your ass. Moving on to the bow, one of the 2 ranged weapons. The thing about the bow is that it's quite a chore to do massive damage with this weapon. Firstly, you gotta be firing the bow horizontally to stack up arrows on the Kemono. When there are enough arrows on the Kemono, then you can switch to the bow's vertical firing mode and hit the arrows that's stuck on the Kemono. Sounds pretty simple. However, both modes have 3 different ways to fire arrows. That can be kinda overwhelming, especially during the heat of battle. I remember I got slightly confused when I first used it. Just remembering that you have to swap in between the 2 modes while avoiding the Kemono's attack was quite a mess for me. Obviously over time you will get used to it, which is why I'll put this weapon under medium. There's literally no combos with this weapon, but looping the whole process of swapping between modes, with each mode having 3 ways of firing, might make a new player fumble. The bladed wagasa, or the umbrella. This weapon definitely belongs in the hard tier of weapons, without a doubt. This weapon heavily relies on parrying the Kemono. If you don't parry at all with this weapon, then good luck with the rest of the fight. Parrying increases the meter, and increasing the meter will increase the damage of the weapon. You can increase the meter from normally attacking the Kemono, but I don't think anyone has the time in the world to wait until you build up that meter. Also, if you're not consistently attacking, the meter will drop, and it drops quite quickly, making the meter hard to maintain. All of this basically means that you have to know how the Kemono attacks before you're able to fight every Kemono in the game without taking a lot of hits. As for me using the weapon, yeah, I get hit a lot, and especially when I'm fighting something new. The Claw Blade, or what I like to call the Attack on Titan weapon. This one is surprisingly simple to use. I thought that I would have to go through some rigorous training with this weapon. Here's a step-by-step on how this weapon works. Firstly, build up the gauge, latch onto the Kemono, spam aerial attacks, and finish off by pressing Y to perform that big dive attack. That's it really. Of course, you do have to take notice of the gauge, because once that runs out, then there's no more Attack on Titan airborne attacks, and you have to go and build up the gauge again. The aerial controls as well might take time to get used to. However, other than that, it's not that hard. I'm gonna say that this is a medium. Not too hard, but not really easy either. The cannon, the other ranged weapon. My god, this is a pain to use when you're fighting fast Kemonos, which is like the majority of them. Okay, so this weapon has 2 gauges to manage. If you don't manage them correctly, this weapon becomes unusable. This is like making your PC crash. If you want to get massive damage with this weapon, then you're gonna have to know when is the best time to do it. Okay, so what the hell am I on about? The requirements to do this weapon's best attack is long. Here's the process. Fire the cannon until it's close to overheating. Fire the base on the Kemono, which will create an enhanced base. Reload on that enhanced base. Then you can fire the laser. It's pretty cool, but will the Kemono stop moving for you to do that? Oh no, it won't. I can see this weapon being good in a multiplayer setting, but a solo player will struggle to use this. So how hard is this weapon? It's just a huge chore to build up that laser, but since all you're doing is picking the right moments to fire the cannon, I'm gonna say this is a medium. Ideally, I would put it in between medium and hard, but I wanted to make the rating simple. Lastly is the Karakuri staff. I use this weapon way too much. Okay, using this weapon for the first time was a pain. It was frustrating to know when I could transform the weapon. With the ability to transform into 5 weapons, comes with a complex string of attacks. Well, actually in reality it's more like each weapon has between 1 to 4 attacks before seeing the cue to transform. Also, the 5th transformation, or what I like to call the last transformation, which is the massive sword, doesn't really have any combos. It's more like a single button press, and you can let it do its stuff, on top of you controlling where to aim its attack. The other pain with this weapon is the gauge. This gauge has a strict timer, where if you don't hit the Kemono with a transform attack, that gauge will drop to 0. It does not have a gradual decline for the gauge build up to disappear. It just deletes itself. So now you're struggling to constantly hit the kemono while fighting the clock with the gauge dropping when you see it glow red. And the whole world is ending in front of you. Yeah, I would like to say that there's a little stress at play here. So I'm gonna say it's a hard weapon. Mega satisfying when you get that max gauge and do the massive sword attack, but man, is it a pain to build up. Okay, so that's all the weapons. Here's the wrap up in order of easiest to hardest weapon. The Karakuri katana is hella easy. I would like to put the claw blade somewhat in between easy and medium. The Nodachi is a medium for its slow attacks and its focus on the EI gauge. The bow is a medium for its complex firing modes. The cannon is also a medium for managing 2 gauges and setting up the weapon. The maul is a hard, but it would be close to medium for eventually getting used to timing the moments to extend the handle. The Karakuri staff is second to hardest because getting used to the timing of transforming each transformation takes time. Finally, the hardest is the bladed wagasa because to easily build up the gauge, you have to parry a kemono, and each kemono has different attacks. I also forgot to mention that the parry window for the bladed wagasa is extremely small. You have to be able to react instantly to some of these attacks. Now once again, let me remind people that this is just my own opinion on which might be difficult for a new player. I highly suggest that you give any weapon a go to see if it is hard for you or not. My opinion in the end should not be your go-to decision on using a weapon. I'm just giving you a heads up as to which one I think might be hard for you. Maybe drop down in the comments below, which one do you think is easy or hard to use? If you found the video useful in some way, be sure to give it a like, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and I shall see you guys later.